Today we consider Job chapter 28, verse 1. There is a mine for silver, a place where gold is refined. Iron is taken from the earth, copper is melted from ore. Man puts an end to the darkness. He searches the farthest recesses for ore in the blackest darkness. God, friends, has put silver and gold and iron and precious stones into the earth. It is difficult to find these things. I personally do not think that men have found the vastness of the treasures that are really in this earth. I think this chapter is saying very clearly that man has not found several things that God has created. It also suggests that there are precious stones which have never been discovered, which might be more valuable than what has already been discovered. Verses 4 and 5. Far from where people dwell, he cuts a shaft. In places forgotten by the foot of man, far from men he dangles and sways. The earth from which food comes is transformed below as by fire. Not only does this earth produce precious stones, Job says now that it also produces food, bread for us to eat. Verse 6, sapphires come from its rocks, and its dust contain nuggets of gold. No bird of prey knows that hidden path. No falcon's eyes has seen it. Proud beasts do not set foot on it, and no lion prowls there. The birds fly over the earth and its mountains. There are veins of minerals down in the earth that birds fly over and know nothing about. Neither can the vulture or the falcon see them. There must be precious stones, veins of riches and wealth, which are completely unknown and untapped. Verse 10, he tunnels through the rock. His eyes see all its treasures. He searches the sources of the rivers and brings hidden things to light. He tunnels through rocks. His eyes see all its treasures. Job, friends, has been talking about minerals, precious stones in the earth. There are things which are of even more value: wisdom, understanding. Unless man has this, he would never be able to find the former. Unless he has wisdom, which is the most precious commodity, man would not be able to find even one mineral from the earth. Verse 12, but where can wisdom be found? Where does understanding dwell? Man does not comprehend its worth. It cannot be found in the land of the living. The deep says, it is not in me. The sea says, it is not with me. It cannot be bought with the finest gold, nor can its price be weighed in silver. Where can wisdom be found? Job is telling his friends that they have not found wisdom. I would like to voice an opinion of this passage specifically. I do not believe that all this probing of the ocean floor, space, and every crevice in the earth is going to tell man anything relating to real wisdom, real knowledge concerning the origin of this earth. Man cannot find it. He will not learn how it came into existence. He cannot learn how it was put into existence. Unless man knows the God of creation, man cannot understand creation in its true sense. Verse 16, it cannot be bought with gold or offer, with precious onyx or sapphires. Neither gold nor crystal can compare with it, nor can it be had for jewels of gold. Coral, jasper are not worthy of mention. The price of wisdom is beyond rubies. Now you notice verse 20. Where then does wisdom come from? Where does understanding dwell? It is hidden from the eyes of every living thing, concealed even from the birds of the air. Destruction and death say, only a rumor of it has reached our ears. We have heard about it, but even death ought to tell us something. It ought to tell us that there is something on the other side. It ought to tell us that there is something that we really don't understand and know. Men just step through the doorway of death. My friend, they are not able to get back into this world. They are not able to understand what death really means. Friends, if we cannot understand that particular event of life, really, we still haven't learned anything. But there's one who's gone through those doors and he teaches us what death really is. Unless we know him, we don't understand the universe. Verse 28, and he said to man, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to shun evil, that is understanding. If you don't shun evil, you're not a man of understanding. If you don't fear the Lord, you don't have wisdom. You can pretend to have it, you can imagine you have it, you can coax yourself. But really, friend, you don't have wisdom, you don't have understanding, except if you fear the Lord and if you shun evil. Job's friends were not able to probe this man's problem at all. We are going to see his secret sin revealed, but it is not anything that his friends suspected. We will find in this chapter 20 verses Job uses the personal pronoun I or me. He uses 52 times. Mark them in your Bible. You'll be amazed. Job seems to be so wrapped up in himself. Now you notice verse 1 of Job 29. Job continued his discourse. How I long for the months gone by, for the days when God watched over me, when his lamp shone upon my head, and by his light I walked through darkness. Those were the good days that Job longed for. When the Almighty, verse 5, was still with me, my children around me, my parts was drenched with cream, and with rock poured out for me streams of olive oil. When I went to the gate of the city and took my seat in the public square. Job was a prosperous man. Everything he touched seemed to turn to gold. Not only was he a prosperous man, but he was a man of respect and influence. He would sit himself in the public square. Verse 8, the young men saw me and stepped aside. Old men rose to their feet. The chief men refrained from speaking and covered their mouths with their hands. The voices of the nobles were hushed, and their tongues stuck to the roof of their mouths. The children would run and hide from him because he was such a great man. The old would rise when they saw him coming. They would take off their caps and bow before him. When he sat, the others would stop speaking and hear what Job had to say. Nobility didn't speak in his presence unless he asked them to. Verse 12, because I rescued the poor who cried for help, the fatherless who had none to assist him. Job, these words say, he rescued the poor, he provided pensions for the aged, he helped them. Verse 14, I put on righteousness as my clothing, justice was my robe and my turban. Job was adorned with righteousness and justice, with good works, and people came to him for advice. I was eyes to the blind, feet to the lame. The blind depended on Job for their eyes. The lame depended on Job for their feet. Job was a man who was not only concerned about his family, but he was concerned about every person who was suffering around him. Verse 17, I broke the fangs of the wicked, a man of justice. The fangs of the wicked. The wicked have fangs, friends. And snatched the victims from their teeth. What a picture. He believed in civic righteousness and law and order. He was influential enough to make sure that the wicked were defanged. That was Job. What a man he was. I thought, I will die in my own house, my days as numerous as the grains of sand. My roots will reach to the water, and the dew will lie all night on my branches. My glory will remain fresh in me, the bow ever new in my hand. Job said to himself, I've got it made. I have everything I want, even for my retirement. I'm going to die in my own nest. I'll multiply my days as the sands in the seashore. I will die as an old man and live to a ripe old age. I tell you, he thought he had everything. He had a wonderful family, wonderful health. One can't think of anything that Job did not have. Verse 21, men listened to me expectantly. So he was also a man of wisdom, waiting in silence for my counsel. Many people spoke, but when Job spoke, people listened. After I had spoken, they spoke no more. He had the last word. My words fell gently on their ears. He wasn't harsh. He spoke gentle words. They waited for me as for showers. What a picture. Job's words were full of refreshing and drank my words as the spring rain. The entire group sought out his advice. Before they could make a decision, they would contact Job and ask for his perspective. The governor of the state, the Supreme Court head, would talk things over with Job before they arrived at any conclusion. He was a man who was exceptional, a man of great influence. They would hang on to every single word that Job spoke. Verse 24. When I smiled at them, they scarcely believed it. The light of my face was precious to them. I chose the way for them and sat as their chief. I dwelt as a king among his troops. I was like one who comforts mourners. Job sat, friends, at the very pinnacle of the station of his life. He dwelt in honor and affluence and in influence. He was a magnate. He was a tycoon. He was an ideal man, the goal toward which humanity is striving today. He lived the good life. He knew what abundant living really was. Job, friends, you notice, is walking that fine line between bragging about past accomplishments and recalling good deeds in order to answer the charges that were posed against him. Job's one weakness throughout his conversation is that he came dangerously close to pride. Pride is especially deceptive when we are doing the right thing. But it separates us. It separates us from God by making us think we are better than we really are. Then comes the tendency to trust our own opinions, which leads to other kinds of sins. While it is not wrong to recount past deeds, it is far better to recount God's blessings to us. This will help us keep from inadvertently falling into pride. And again, friends, because of this description of Job's work, many scholars, many people believe that Job was a judge. In Job's day, a judge served as both a civil city councilman and also a magistrate, helping to manage the community to settle disputes. In most cases, this was a full-time position. Sometimes it was a part-time post held on the basis of one's respect and the person standing in that area. Job, friends, was a man of respect. Whether these scholars are right or wrong, we don't know. But Job held a lot of respect in that place. Job is thinking of his past, and the past only served to increase his agony, his past splendor, and his present despondency. You know, friends, when Job looked ahead, he could really see nothing. When Job looked around, he could see his friends who depressed him. And now when Job looks backward, again depression. He had only one place to look, and that is to turn upward and look at God. We must learn from the past, but never live in the past. May God bless you richly.